Hi, this is Nancy. I decided recently that I was going to do a remake on all of my old blogs from way back when. And so I looked back and I looked at some of the very first blogs that I had ever written way back in 2010. And the first one that I came across was Grace, It's Not Just for Others. And I thought I would look back at some of these blogs and what has really changed for me as a clinician, as someone who has far more experience now, and how would I look at these same topics again fresh? And so I read what I had written about grace back then, back during a time when I was going through a divorce, and it really was remarkable to me how much I still use that very concept of grace. It's not just for others. And so even just this week in my work, I have been using some of those same stories that I used all those years ago because they're just still straight up and relevant and right on the money. And so I thought I'd talk just a little bit about grace and about why it's such a problem for us to give ourselves, especially when we can give it so readily to others. And so when you think about how much easier it is for you to forgive someone else than it is for you to forgive yourself. And I think back to a time early on, I was marketing my practice to area churches and other establishments in the area just so they would know that I was here and that I was accepting clients. And I went and talked to a pastor back in those days of a church that's near to my office. And we were discussing grace. And he said to me that when he was back in the seminary, that he had listened to a lecture from someone at seminary who said, I think that I am the worst sinner I know because I know what goes on in here. And he said to me, I realized in that moment that I was the worst sinner I know because I know what goes on in here. And I looked at him square in the face and I said, Pastor, I think I'm the worst sinner I know because I know what goes on in here. And so we're much quicker to give other people the benefit of the doubt as we are to give ourselves because we know what goes on in here. We know exactly how crummy people we actually are and how much we sin in our thoughts all the time, beyond even how we sin overtly with the world. And so, I know all of the ways that I'm a sinner, but I don't know all of the ways that you're a sinner. And so I become much more inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt and forgive you quicker than I couldn't forgive myself. That being said, it's a story, it's a analogy that I use for being able to work through this particular problem inside of us, which is this lifelong wound that I believe everybody has at least some, and that is the painful, accurate belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of being loved. Now, why would I say that that's an accurate belief? Because if we base our good enoughness on our perfection, we're all screwed. We're all screwed. And so, if we're talking about me and judging my worthiness of being loved on how well I can keep myself from being a sinner, so to speak, for how well I can keep myself from hurting others or doing things that I know are wrong, we're all screwed. We're all completely hosed. And so that is what makes giving ourselves grace so difficult. Well, what kind of argument, proof even, can we give to ourselves for why we are actually worthy of being loved and enough? If we're using our perceptions of how well we do perfect behavior, we're all screwed. We're all hosed. And so that can't be what makes us worthy of being loved. Now, we can see worthiness of being loved in other people so quickly. So let's just jump on that for a second. All right, so if you think about the best example for most people is their children. they are the critters on this planet that crawl into our heart and make a nest, and they stay there. And for the most part, parents love their kids unconditionally, like crazy, no matter what kind of horrible things that they might even do in the world. For the vast majority of us can connect with that. And so, if you don't have children, think about someone that you love unconditionally. You love them. You just do, and you know that they're imperfect, but you love them anyway. And I hope that that everyone who would watch this would have at least one person like that in their lives. And so you think about this person that you love. Why do you love them? They're completely imperfect. I've not even met them. I've not been introduced to them, but I can tell you for sure that I know they're imperfect. And so why can we say that we love them, even though they're imperfect? Because when we look at other people, we can see rather readily, I love you, and you're imperfect at the same time. Now, that's also true about us, about ourselves. I'm imperfect and I'm worthy of being loved for no other reason than because I am. Why do we love our kids? Because they exist, because they're ours. Their existence, their life is enough for us to love them. I can tell you for a fact, the moment I knew I was pregnant with my kids, I was completely in love with the little buggers. And so why? Hadn't even met them yet. And they were making me violently ill. During my pregnancies, I threw up a lot. And so, violently ill from the very beginning. Little parasites, they sucked nutrients from my body and all kinds of things as they were developing. And then I gave birth to them, and they did all kinds of horrible things. They peed on me, they pooped on me, they barfed on me, they were ridiculously expensive, they kept me up all night, et cetera, et cetera. And then they became roughly 2 years old, and they got control of their little tongues, and they become raging little egomaniacs. Yes, we do that. We do that as human beings, and so, yet I still loved them all the way through then, and even up until now, when they're now in their late teens and more expensive than ever, and and I still love them like I would take a bullet for them. Why do we love such imperfect creatures so wholeheartedly? Other than because they are. And realizing that that is true about me too is how we fight the lie that we believe deep down that keeps whispering to us, yeah, you did that, you screwed that up. See how imperfect you are, see how unlovable you are. It's a lie. It's a lie that gets whispered in our head all the time. And it's a liar that needs to be hunted down and done away with. And the thing that kills that lie is the truth of the fact that you are both and instead of either or. Am I good enough or am I not? The truth being, I am worthy of being loved and good enough, and I'm not, if I'm looking only to my own ability to perform perfectly. So we can see how imperfect our children are and how lovable they are. That's true about us too. And that truth, confronting the mythical belief, the lying belief that I'm not good enough unless or if, which is the worst lie that's ever been perpetrated on the human race. You're only good enough if what? No, you're good enough. And you never were. And you always will be. And you always are. And you always were. And you never were. And you never will be. You're both at the same time. We can see the duality of that when we look at our children. And that truth of that duality is what slays the dragon in our head that tells us, yeah, you're not good enough. You're not worthy of being loved. Lies. And so we need to slay that thing and kill it. And the more we continue to work on that particular process, making sure that we kill it every day. Every day that we hear it, every time that we hear it, we kill it. We confront it with the truth of you are both and not either or. And when we get that, and we continue to tell ourselves that truth, that starts to ease up. That pain of and that fear of not being good enough starts to ease up. So hopefully you enjoyed that today, and we'll talk more another time as I go through my old blogs and revamp them. So see you soon. Bye-bye.